Alison Rumfitt's Tell Me I'm Worthless is one of my favorite books that I've read so far this year, and they have a new book out. So let's talk about Brainwyrms. Hello, big friends. Welcome back to the channel. Hello, if you are new. It's Alyssa, and I have another book review for you. We just got off live for TV Lowdown, so I have some like looking humans. So it's time to talk about Brainwyrms by Alison Rumfitt. I got this early manuscript from Tor Nightfire a few months ago. Thank you, Tor. And the book is going to be out as of posting this review. And I have a lot of thoughts on this. This is definitely, for me, not up to par with Tell Me I'm Worthless, but I still enjoyed it. So let's kind of break into this book. So once again, Alison Rumfitt is bringing us a horror book that speaks to the trans experience and particularly the growing anti-trans movement in the UK in particular, but is also seen here in the US. It is very violent, very graphic, very Alison Rumfitt. There are a lot of trigger warnings. They're in the front of the book. I would advise you to check those out before you read this one in particular, because this is way more intense than Tell Me I'm Worthless was, and it might not be everybody's cup of tea. I still really like this, but I do have some apprehensions about this story compared to, or criticisms of this story compared to Tell Me I'm Worthless. So I'm just going to read you the back because I've tried to summarize this, and sometimes I'm not good at summarizing things. So let's talk about what this is about. When a transphobic woman bombs Frankie's workplace, she blows up Frankie's life with it. As the media descends like vultures, Frankie tries to cope with the carnage, binge drinking, having sex with strangers, pushing away her friends. Then she meets Vanya, mysterious, beautiful, terrifying Vanya. The two hit it off immediately, and as the relationship intensifies, so too does Frankie's feelings that Vanya is hiding something from her. When Vanya's secrets threaten to tear them apart, Frankie starts digging and unearths a sinister, depraved conspiracy, the roots of which go deeper than she ever imagined. It's shocking, grotesque, and downright filthy. And I will agree with that. It is definitely shocking and very grotesque and very, 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 very filthy. And none of those are necessarily negatives. Let's go for the pros. Pros, I enjoyed the body horror. I enjoy the commentary on the spiraling right wing agenda against trans people, their right to exist, their validity as people. One of the things that this book does really well is talking about kind of how society will, like one faction of society will label another faction as sort of depraved when in reality, like they are depraved. So there's a lot of mirroring going on between our anti trans characters and what they are saying our trans characters in this story are. Frankie does have a lot of kinks. I will say she's got kinks, and those kinks maybe will be difficult for some people to read about, but I think it's really important to understand that like kinks are fine, and between consenting adults there's nothing wrong with it. The problem arises when you cross the line and one party is no longer consenting, right? Then it becomes something very different. But if two consenting adults agree to these, whatever your kink is, that's great. That's fine. Have at it. Have fun. And Frankie and Vanya definitely have a very interesting relationship. It's a very Dom sort of sub relationship. Vanya has their own issues that leads leads them to be open to being victimized by certain people in this story. Overall, I enjoyed the general messaging of the book. I enjoyed the body horror. I love how Alison Rumfitt makes these really gritty, dirty, messy characters in books and is not afraid to like go hard and go dark and go like deep. But my problem is that I just don't think this is as cohesive, which is why it's so hard for me to do this review because I'm trying to like cohesively tell you about a story that I don't think is as cohesive as Tell Me I'm Worthless. I feel like that book was so perfectly balanced and it was so delicately woven with the haunted house and the metaphors and the horror. It was like perfection, and this just misses the mark a bit. It's the story itself is a little bit more disjointed. It feels a little bit more like you're jumping around a bit more in this, so it's hard to find your footing while you're reading it. And we do change tense, and Rumfit breaks the fourth wall and talks to the reader, which I don't hate because one of the times that she does that is when something incredibly grotesque is about to happen. Like it made me uncomfortable, and not a lot of things make me uncomfortable. Didn't put me off, it just made me uncomfortable. Rumfit breaks that fourth wall and actually tells the reader to pause and go do something and then come back because what's happening next is going to be like over the top terrible. And it really is over the top terrible, but it feeds into the overall narrative of these brainworms, of this like infectious nature of hate. And I think that the visuals that go along with this discussion and the things that happen to these people are just so disturbing, and I loved it. I loved this idea of these just disgusting, hateful people and the things that happen to them and like the worms that are present in this story and just I loved it. Loved it. So good. It was so well done. But the general narrative, it needed to be tighter. It just felt sloppy at times, and it was harder for me to just get that feeling that I had with Tell Me I'm Worthless, where I was just absolutely invested in this and I didn't like I was devouring that book and I didn't have that same feeling and I wanted that, I think. I think if I hadn't had a moment with this author where I was just absolutely consuming their books, like eating it up, like I couldn't get like a glutton for their writing. Maybe I would feel a little differently, but this just didn't have that same cohesiveness that I know Rumfit can do. So I was disappointed to some extent. So not a 5-star read, not my favorite book of the year. Didn't knock Tell Me I'm Worthless off of that pedestal or series of pedestals because I never picked one book for the year, but I did really enjoy it. I do think that it's going to be for a particular audience. I don't think that everybody's going to be okay with some of the horror that's in here and some of the like grotesque nature of it, but I do still think it's a very important read. And I did really get quite a chuckle out of the character that is quite clearly JKR. I got quite a chuckle out of the way Rumfit deals with her. Uh, I just loved it. Anyway, out now. If you were curious to see what Rumfit was going to do next, if you are into horror and you have a strong stomach and you're really not triggered by anything, definitely give it a try. But please check out those warnings because I do think that this one is a little bit heavier hitting than the previous. And don't skip that intro forward because I think it says a lot about the state of the world that we're like rapidly sliding into. It is not okay to person somebody because you don't agree with who they are and you don't believe that who they are is real. Just because someone lives a different lifestyle or is different from you doesn't invalidate their personhood. And I think that that is something that Alison Rumfitt is really good at hammering home. And I think that the messaging of this mirrored depravity, that the person pointing the finger at somebody else and saying you are depraved is very likely a very depraved person themselves, and perhaps the other person isn't at all. They are just a person that makes them see their own depravity, and they're not comfortable with that. And I hope that makes sense as a statement. So, all in all, this is 3.5, 4 stars. Not my favorite book, but I'm still a huge Rumfit fan. Cannot wait to see their next book is going to be because the creep is good. I do enjoy the creepiness of her writing. It works for me. It is grotesque. It gives me the little bits of horror. It makes me cringe. I feel things. It does what I want horror to do. And I love that it's not just horror. There is social commentary, and it is biting, and it, it doesn't pull punches, and I do enjoy that. I just wish this narrative was a little tighter and not quite as sloppy. I feel like there was a lot trying to be done in this. You were bouncing around characters and you bounced around POVs. You changed tense. There was just a lot happening, and it felt a little bit more sloppy than I would have liked. Brainwyrms, Alison Rumfitt, out now. Give it a try if you are so brave. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video, whatever it may be, because it's my channel and I can do whatever I want. Bye.
So just sit with me, talking to the night until the morning, building chemistry. I don't think I ever wanna go come closer next to me. Trying to find another way to say this, but I think